One of the first things that I do when I'm looking for a story is I look at the bulletin boards of a place. So here's a cafe. It's filled with business cards, small posters, advertisements and things like that. So I'm going to scour that board and see if there's something new or something that might affect me or my community. That's really important. One of the most important things to know is that you are going to have a better story if you interview people. So we're going to do an interview now, and just to walk you through the steps of how to do an interview and where you might find stories. So we're going to start by talking to the 1872 Cafe's assistant manager, Kevin.
Hi.
How are you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good. Place looks good today.
Slow Sunday.
Slow Sunday. Okay. Beautiful place.
Thank you.
Just wondered, Kevin, if you could tell us why you work here. It's right in the middle of of the city, and there are lots of coffee shops. What is it about the 1872 Cafe that you want to work here?
It's the people. There are a lot of great people in this neighborhood that I feel like I looked over, and just putting a smile on their face, even just for 3 seconds for the day, whether it's a witty comment or just a good morning and a cup of coffee, that usually gets me going. So it gets everyone started with their day. Gets their day started off nicely. So it's a nice way to just to see them and say hello and become on a first name basis. Because sometimes at Starbucks, like you go to the bigger Starbucks, you go to these bigger coffee shops, and it's really impersonal. It's in and out, and you don't really get to know anyone, and there's just an air of pretentiousness. And like here, we kind of shred all that. Coffee to donuts, you get pizza. It's very simple. We keep it simple, but we also like to get to know our customers, and we get to even with you coming in, it's nice to build a relationship. Like I can give you what you want, you don't even have to ask for it at this point. So building those relationships, I do that with a lot of people, and I'm actually surprised at myself how many people I actually remember their order for, because it's just something that because you care about a lot of people in the community, it's something you do whether you realize it or not. And I feel this little cafe, Sam and I work really well together, and we're really looking just to take care of the people in the area.
Okay. Well, that was nice of Kevin to help me out. If I reflect a little bit, though, on our quick interview, I think about the questions that I could have asked had I been publishing a story for a newspaper. So, for example, I may have done some follow-up questions on Kevin's background, where else he's worked, and what his hopes and dreams are for his own future. I could have asked him and and the manager Sam about the background of this cafe. It's called the 1872 Cafe because that's the year that Susan B. Anthony voted here and was arrested for it. A local developer decided to build on this spot and built a set of apartments behind it. This developer, Nelson Leanhouse, wanted to bring some housing into the neighborhood and to provide a greater sense of community, so hence the 1872 Cafe. By the way, full disclosure, my great-great-grandmother were Rochester pioneers who raised their family just a few blocks from here and not far from the Susan B. Anthony home. So this is part of what makes me so passionately interested in seeing this area thrive. As reporters, we do bring our own passions and interests and backgrounds to our stories, and at the same time, we have to work hard to cover up our biases and make sure that we're being really open about the way that we present stories. We're going to move on here, and we're going to talk to someone who's becoming a real pro, and that's Lizzie Wisniewski, who has just been informed that she won a very nice award from the Columbia Scholastic Press Association. Last year, Lizzie set about writing a story about our Chromebooks and the introduction of those Chromebooks into Webster, and she worked hard to interview students as well as administrators, and she worked very hard to bring together all those different views into one article. So she won 3rd place in the category of news features, digital media. Let's hear from her. Okay, Lizzie, can you tell us a little bit about the process of writing your article? What was the article about, and
how did you write it?
Yeah, the article was about Chromebooks. We recently got them introduced to the school, so I was really interested in how students felt about them and know if they really liked having them, if they didn't. So I really just started with like walking into the cafeteria and just asking kids, hey, can you tell me about Chromebooks? And a lot of them had no opposition to being interviewed. A lot of them were really passionate about their opinions, so I got a lot of good material. It was definitely tricky picking which interviews to use and which not to use. I really just went who gave me a really nice opinion and who had a lot of good wording for the article, and it really just came quite easy in regards to that.
Nice. Now, when you sat down and looked at your notes, how did you decide to write it? Like, how did you start it, and what is it? I wonder what drew the judge's attention.
Yeah, I thought the best way to start would be to kind of give a really concise version of like the opinions of one of the people I interviewed. I interviewed Andrew Weigel, and he had a really concise, opinion. He told me about why he didn't like it and what kind of drove him to wish that he didn't have a Chromebook necessarily. And that's really what made me think, oh, that'd be a great way to start it, to introduce a student's actual opinion on something. So that's how I did the lead.
Nice. Okay. Can you just read us the lead?
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
Junior Andrew Weigel struggles to connect to the Wi-Fi. He tries to print paper upon paper, only to encounter malfunctions. He tries to incorporate new technology into his school life, and he hates the feeling of staring at a screen every single day. These are the struggles that Andrew has had to face this year with the introduction of Chromebooks to Webster Thomas. He is not alone.
Okay, thank you, Lizzie. And as you moved into other opinions, like administrators were probably a lot more positive in their opinions and stuff like that. How did you manage to pull that all together? What was next in your story?
Yeah, I really tried to wrap around, because they had a lot of statistics. They gave me, the graduation rates, how many Chromebooks there were in the Webster district. So I tried to look at that and try to reflect that in their opinions, because they saw a very positive aspect to it, which I thought was really neat, contrasting that to the students being a little more opposed to the change. But I really try to make people see like both sides, to see the positive side that the administrators gave, to try to broaden their horizons a little bit.
Good. Could you read us just what the journalists would call sort of the nut paragraph?
Yeah, of course. The new Chromebooks, the laptops that were assigned out to each student that connect to the internet, that work at high speed, and that offer apps and programs, have brought some headaches and been received with mixed reviews from the student body. Students were interviewed informally in the cafeteria, in hallways, in between classes about their thoughts on the new technology. Some are surely not feeling the love, arguing that the Chromebooks are more of an inconvenience and a nuisance. Some students, however, said that the new laptops are beneficial and a good resource. Administrators insist that with time and a little patience, the Chromebooks will be a rewarding addition to the school. They say the goal of providing the Chromebooks was to make things easier for students.
Okay, thank you. Okay, last question, Lizzie. How should a student approaching a news feature story, how should they approach it?
I would approach it making sure that you don't include your own biased opinion into it, and try to think about how would someone else reading this from outside the school, how would they view it, and how would their opinion be swayed one way or another. Because ultimately when you write a news feature, you have to leave it up to the reader to determine whether they agree with one side or whether they disagree with another side. And I definitely think you have to try to make sure you have both sides of the argument. You can't just be biased to one. You have to make sure you have equal coverage of the two sides, of the administrators and the students.
Okay, thank you.